Well, welcome to the very last video from this location. It's funny, the idea of location as if one is different from another. It's actually, you're always actually in the same exact place in eternity, dreaming that you're somewhere in the world as a body doing something, making a video or whatever it is you think you're doing. In actual fact, nothing's happening at all. You're not here, there's nothing going on. And in the process that we call healing, all we're ever doing or seeming to do in the world is to bring ourselves into a greater alignment with the clarity of that statement as a vibration, which we can call the Christ vibration or the Buddha vibration. Doesn't really matter what you want to call it, the higher vibration. And the process of that, by necessity, because you learn to remember better by forgetting, or see that you're forgetting, is an ongoing process. Every day there's something. And as you get further and further from the beginning point, or the conscious beginning point, let's say, of your process, which is always just here and now anyway, but it seems like it's a process. As you get further from that beginning point, where, let's say, for example, if you pick up A Course in Miracles and it's the year 2025 and I'm going to consciously start my spiritual purification, the process of that, my heart's led me to this place, I've been following my heart, and now it's led me to the point where I need to discipline the mind and bring the mind into the alignment with my higher self, my higher good. You never need to do that with the heart, because the heart always speaks truly. It's only the mind that's full of a lot of garbage and tries to tell you all sorts of narratives about everyone and everything, and eventually you're like, oh my God. So as you get, let me start from the beginning. When you first start, let's say we're working with the Course in Miracles with the workbook. When you first start that workbook and when you start reading the Course, you see sometimes with horror how far out of alignment you are, how far down the rabbit hole you've fallen as far as judgment goes, holding grievances goes, your level of selfishness goes, all that sort of stuff. And Jesus presents you in the Course with a perfect model of a healed mind, right? And especially at the end, you read the Saviour's vision, that chapter. It's beautiful, and you read that and you're like, oh my God, that's nowhere near where where I'm at. And you realize how you've got a lot of work to do, right? But we're here to do the work. That's what we're doing. And the work is simply a process of accepting atonement for myself. Finger on the nose, keep it on the nose. If your finger slips off your nose and starts to point out there at someone or something else, you know you've still got more work to do. Whoops. But when you go along, at first it's obvious, right? At first, how out of alignment you are, or how screwed up you are, is obvious. Even though you may not want to accept it, you may want to reject it and throw the book against the wall and all of that. I've done that. But eventually you realize, oh man, I've got to do this course. I have to. There's something about it. It draws me in, and you just, because it's divine, and there's something in you that is seeking for the divine. And even when you find a divine message or a divine teaching on earth, or somebody to represent it, you kind of gravitate to that until you've got it under your own belt and you can stand on your own 2 feet with it, right? And we have a lot of people that come to our Zoom meetings, and they'll come there, they'll get what they need to get, they'll take on board what they need to take on board, and then we won't see them again, and that's perfect. And then other people that have made a sort of a conscious decision to be about assisting with the dissemination of the material and helping to get this out as quickly as possible, because ideas are increased by sharing, they'll stick around for a lot longer. And I'm always grateful for that. I always need help. And I have Tina and Dana and a few other willing helpers there, and Deb, and so all you guys, you know who you are. Anna, thank you. I couldn't do this without you. But as you go along, the nature of ego, which you are attempting to, let's say, break your bonds from, or realign or reinterpret its defenses about, it becomes more subtle. You don't notice. At first, it's very obvious how out of whack you are. And then after a while, you start to realize that all my big issues, my big trauma and drama, which reflect the nature of my relationship with God as being separate from God, they're kind of done. And I feel good now. I feel much better, right? I see that I've had a few shifts in consciousness. Things are starting to make more sense. And I can begin to see my whole way out. But what happens is, because it gets so subtle, and I'm going to use the whiteboard here. I've had people asking me to use the whiteboard more again. But as it gets more and more subtle, it gets harder to catch those little moments of, where you have a grievance or a little sigh of discontent. Anything that's not perfect peace, not perfect joy, perfect happiness, right? And one of the things that I like to do, because a lesson repeats until it's learned, sometimes those harmonics are so subtle that you'll miss it. And you'll be like, oh, what was that? And it's gone, right? And you'll be trying to put your finger on it. And a lot of people tell me the same thing, and I've experienced this myself exactly. You try to put your finger on it. What was that? Something happened and you miss it. It's like a little reaction in the mind. And it's almost as if your ego tries to come out and poke you with something sharp and then ducks away into the shadows again. And by the time you realize you've been poked, you're like, what was that? I need to forgive that, right? But it's always best if you can catch it in the moment, because your reaction, your emotional reaction to things is always honest, right? The mind will always tell you a story. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's not so bad. I'll be right. I'm okay. But your emotions will tell you, it's like, no, well, I reacted to it. Obviously, I reacted to it because I felt it, right? I feel it. And if you can't feel it, you can't heal it. You've got to be in touch. That's why heart and mind have to be together in this. You bring the power of the mind with the passion of the heart, and boom, you got a healing going on. You may miss it, of course, the first time it comes around, but if you're practicing to be vigilant for the kingdom of heaven, the next time it comes around, you'll recognize that feeling again. Be like, oh, there it is again. And you'll be able to see it in context, right? Well, maybe it'd have to come around a few times. When you can see it in context in relationship, you'll be able to be more vigilant for that relationship in the recognition that, oh, there's healing for me in that relationship somewhere. I need to be aware of that and allow myself to be undefended, defenseless in that relationship, so that I can get a real good look at what's going on, right? And of course, you get to look at it with the spirit of love, the Holy Spirit, the spirit of holiness. So I'll use the whiteboard because I want to demonstrate something. I was just driving back. I don't do any spiral work, but many, many years ago, when I spent a year or two with the Rainbow Tribe, everything was spiral this and spiral that. And I remember this particular one, but it just came back to me while I was driving today. And forgive me if I don't do a very neat spiral, but the spiral gets bigger and whatever as it goes out, right? Maybe down there it's not, and it gets further and further out, the more spirals you go around, etc. Right, now, let's say we're looking for a singular point in consciousness. We're looking for the I am. We're trying to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is the love, being God love, unconditional love. The I am, the central singular point of all existence, God, whatever you want to call it. Right, we're going to put that right in the middle. And depending on how many incarnations, depending on how many experiences, how defended we are, etc., we'll find ourselves somewhere. And I'm just going to use like on the outer circle, like a galaxy, right? As an idea of a beginning. Maybe you're in here, maybe somewhere there. It doesn't really matter. There's no real way to know. You just get a general sense of things, and you begin to get a better sense of things as you begin to take on board consciously your healing process. I need a different color. And you'll start to see, oh, that would have once triggered me and I didn't really have any reaction. It didn't upset me, but I noticed that it didn't upset me, which was good. You become, you witness to the things that, and if I use a common denominator, political figures. A lot of people seem to be concerned about the political landscape all the time, and Joe Biden or Donald Trump or whoever. It doesn't matter who it is. There's always, like it's half the people are going to be triggered if it's this guy and the other half are going to be triggered if it's that guy, to different degrees. It doesn't really matter, right? It's all nonsense. So we're trying to get here. We're trying to bring our minds to a point of perfect stillness so that we're not caught up in the maelstrom of going around and around again. And what happens is this. I've got a green one here, and hopefully I can do this without making a mess. And I've used this idea of the pizza pie before. Oops. And there should be 12 slices. There's probably not there. There's probably 8, whatever. But 12 slices representing the 12 great rays, or the 12 ray association of the Christ refraction of light. And if you want to look at it as the idea, even in music, there's 7 notes that you can hear audibly. I'm holding up 4 fingers. 7 notes that you can hear audibly on the music scale. And then there are these sort of subsonic and ultrasonic notes that you can't hear. And it's the same thing if you were to look at the chakra system. And I don't like that. Don't get me started, right? But anyway, 5 in the body or something and 2 out of the body. I think that's how it goes. 7 or something, or 7 in the body and 5 out of the body. There's 12 altogether. 12 disciples, 12 months of the year, whatever. 12 seems to be a pretty spiritual number. So I'm just going to go with it for a second. Right, now, if you split these up, if I get another colour, and this will all come together in the end, so try to stay with me and you might want to watch this. But all of these slices of pie, these green lines, represent a different slice. Now, the slice of the pie, this whole thing is your life experience on earth, right? Divided up into different relationships. So this one might be parents, P for parents. This one might be spouse, SP. This one might be children, CH. This one might be, let's say, religion, work, hobbies, and whatever else, civic mindedness or something. Just put civic, because you can have a relationship with anything. You're always in a relationship with ideas, because all things represent ideas. I'm just going to get my blue one out again. So what you're doing when you're healing, let's just say you're here in this relationship with your parents, it needs work. You look at it every time you go to your parents' house, it's like, oh my God, I've got to go there again, and Dad will carry on about this and Mum will be about that. And my parents were like that. Mum was always like, do you eat enough vegetables? Are you wearing enough warm clothes? She was one of these sort of like helicopter mums, I guess. But that was the role she'd played for me since being a child, and I was a very sickly little child, and she just sort of played that role perfectly for me. And whilst I liberated her from that in my mind by seeing the Christ in her, she continued to play that part. But at one time, I would react to it every time I'd see her, and I would try to change the narrative on her behalf and say, Mum, you don't have to tell me that all the time. Every time I see you, ask me if I eat enough vegetables. It's like I'm 50 years old or 60 years old. And I realised that wasn't doing anything, and I had to forgive myself for asking her to play that part for me. My mind became healed of the trigger, right? She still played the same part, but it didn't bother me. I was in that relationship, but not of it in that aspect, right? The part of it that was disharmonious to me had been healed in my mind, and would also have been healed in her mind had she turned to Christ. But she was definitely, I tried to present her with that idea many times, and it was a brick wall. But you do what you can do. My only responsibility is to accept atonement for myself, okay? So what happens is, let's just say I heal that. Now, because salvation's not beyond immediate learning, right? You can get to this point straight away. You don't have to go around all of these things, right? If you have enough faith, if you have enough determination, if you have enough stum, you can draw your circle. You can sit there and refuse to adjust to time and space in any aspect, in any regard, in your determination to remember the true nature of your higher self, of your true self. Maybe this is not the right colour. Maybe I'll use purple. Whoever sent me these pens, I'm very grateful. There's a whole bunch of colours. But somebody in Byron Bay. This section here, we can snip that all out, right? So if I do the healing, let's say I'm out here and it's really not annoying me that much. It's sort of this big, slow sort of experience of eat your vegetables and whatever. And it does, but every time I come around again, every time that relationship comes around again, it gets more condensed, more obvious, more annoying, more whatever under my skin. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And there might be 1,000 spirals. I've only got like 1, 2, 3, 4 here, but whatever. It'll be whatever it is according to your association with it, right? Your willingness to learn, or your level of, how do I put it? How many incarnations you've had is a good one, because most people don't become truly, and I should try and clarify this actually, because I would have said at one point, most people don't become really consciously aware of themselves or self-aware of themselves until at least about their 5th or 6th incarnation, where they start to question things and it's like, why does this keep happening to me? And you'll find, and I've got no way to qualify that statement. It's only from things I've read, things I've experienced myself, and that would be on a personal level. So I'm guessing, because everything here is at its own orchestration with each individual association seeking enlightenment, it's going to be where you're at. I mean, the Buddhists have a premise that if you spend a lot of time in meditation, etc., you'll have a better incarnation in your next life. But that's transcendental. It's like, what is the idea of better incarnation in my next life? Does that mean it brings me closer to God in my next life, closer to illumination? In which case, it's going to bring me into more conflict, into a more tightly oppressive experience of myself in the world, to force me into this point, right? To bring me to this point, not really force. It kind of is a force, like it's like a river and all the water suddenly channels down to a very narrow gap and you get the rapids, right? So, but it's not until generally, I'm just going to tar everyone with the same brush here, but I know there's always exceptions to the rule because you can never say never. But generally, most people come to spirituality through suffering, or through seeing the futility of the world, etc., which is another way of seeing suffering, everything. And it's like out here in the outer rim of the galaxy, or the outer rim of your world experience, things are slow. They're slow moving. Your vibration is slow. It's not, you're not particularly aware. Everything seems to be like the lights are on, but nobody's home. And then you stub your toes a few times and you end up coming around and you're in this one and things are a bit more condensed, right? So salvation being not beyond immediate learning, you can go from anywhere in the spectrum of any relationship straight to the center, right? It's like Monopoly, go straight to jail. do not pass go. But you can go straight to the center, right? It's the opposite of jail, it's liberation. But however, that would necessitate that the prayer of your heart for the realization of self, or the greater good, encompasses this snapshot of relationship as a representation of the whole, of everything. I'm willing to forgive this in its entirety because I see that it's no different from any other relationship I'm in its entirety, because every relationship I'm in its entirety is purposeful. It's not different. It looks different. Different person, perhaps, different situation, maybe, but it's still the same purpose. My purpose is to forgive myself, or to accept God's forgiveness, better, to accept God's forgiveness for myself, for the world I think I see. I can do that in relationship to anyone or anything. Okay? Any person, situation, or event. Generally, because the mind is clouded, there's this density over everything. I don't recognize the entirety of the opportunity out here on the rim, because one, I don't know that it's directing me here. I don't know that this is a universal lesson, that relationships are lessons that God would have me learn. I don't know that. I'm learning that. So I don't have an overall appreciation Therefore, I don't have a sense of how much passion, power, and everything it is that it's needed to actually be willing to take that whole thing on. If you did, you'd be on a mountaintop drawing a circle and you wouldn't budge whether you lived, died, or whatever. You just wouldn't care. You'd be like, here I am, Lord, whatever it's worth, I'm not budging. Whether I live or die, I want to know the truth. Right? And that was where I got to in the dark night of my soul. That's how I know that that is matter of fact. Everything is energy, everything is a vibration, and the totality of your energetic prayer, the totality of your energetic appeal for release from time and space, like Jesus says in the Course, ultimately you will demand your release. Like you'll demand it. You're entitled to be released from time and space in its entirety. You're a child of God. You don't have to, Jesus talks about it also in the Courses, you earn your liberation, right? But you earn it by getting in touch with the totality of your willingness. You kind of have trudged this whole thing, looking for an answer, looking for a solution. And I guess in that regard, it's like, I don't really know this because my illumination happened prior to A Course in Miracles, prior to the mind training that brought me to my ability to be able to even fathom any of this sort of stuff. But I see everything now as energy. I don't see things as people and situations and events. I see it as energy. I feel it. And I can talk about that in a bit of a way. It's hard to talk about, but I can talk about it in a bit of a way. But at one time, I would have looked at each relationship as people, things, and whatever, and tried to classify it, determine it, da-da-da-da-da. Now I just feel it. I feel the pulse. I feel the energy of it. I feel the harmonic of it. And it's like if you were to walk into a haunted house, right? And you would feel a chill. You would feel this kind of like, ooh. That's how it is for me, right? Very, very, very much like that. Not like a chill, but like a presence, an awareness. My psychology, if you like, doesn't work the same way that it used to. But anyway, so you go around, you might miss the opportunity in this relationship. Let's say I'm with mum, we're in the kitchen having a chat, and then I go home, right? See you tomorrow, mum, or see you next week, or whatever. And something might have triggered me in there and I might have missed the opportunity for it. The next time it comes around, might be next week. If I'm practicing my spiritual determination, hopefully I'll remember, I'm going to see mum. Father, Holy Spirit, be with me in this relationship, because if something shows up, I want to be vigilant for it, right? It's a regular relationship. I don't have to walk along like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm not stupid. I know that certain people, situations, and events trigger me, right? I want to be honest about it, and I want to allow the Holy Spirit to precede me into that relationship so that when I am triggered, rather than react, defend myself, say something, whatever, I step back. I step back in my mind. I've preempted or prompted or what's I don't know what's the word. But I'm prepped. I'm a prepped, ready for the confrontation with my own thoughts about the relationship as being false from my true relationship, which is divine, right? Because if my true relationship with this person, situation, or event is truly divine, if I'm seeing through the vision of Christ, nothing can upset me. The only thing that can upset me in that relationship is something that is not divine, that I, not mum, not any of these other people, have projected onto that person playing the situation. You know, everybody likes to run around through their relationships. Oh, this person's a narcissist, or this person's a gaslighter, or this person's a whatever, and classify their relationships. It's like, no, put your finger on your own nose. You've asked them to play that part in the experience of your world experience. You know, in my experience of being separate from God, these are the cast and crew that, you know, like the actors in my own play, in my own drama of separation. I've asked them to play that part. They have a memory wipe, just as I have a memory wipe. They don't remember their divine, just as I don't remember their divine, because you can't come through the portal from, and I call it a portal, but you can't swap states and bring anything of the old state with you, right? You can't take anything of this state back into the eternal state. The mind has to be purified. You have to go through the portal as you came out of it. Right? So everybody here, they don't know what the hell's going on any more than you do. And it's like, forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. They just don't know, right? Once the Holy Spirit comes upon you and you realize that it's all just a dream, it's all an illusion, all of a sudden, holy shit, now I know it's just a dream, right? And that's a good start, right? But now you've got to true up to that. Now you've got to true up to what's been shown to you in all of these relationships and bring them all into harmony, bring them all into unity with what's been shown to you, which is in this singular point of illumination of the mind, the realization that your truth is divine and that the world is an illusion, the Maya. Or you could even look at it as, if you want to look at it as, virtual. Right? So it's a whole nother way to see the world. There's no remnant of how you see things now going to be left to you once you start to see in an altruistic way, with the vision of Christ, or Buddha-mindedness, or Krishna consciousness, whatever you want to call that. So it's not entirely impossible to use one relationship. If you realize that little trigger, let's say here it is, hang on, let me use a different color. I've got red, but I've got another orange here too. Here's my trigger, right? This whole square or shape here is my relationship, but here's this tiny mad idea represented by the trigger. The tiny mad idea is the idea that I'm separate from God, which shows up as an idea of conflict or relative truth within the framework of that relationship encounter. Okay? So all I'm ever looking for is the tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. In my own mind, I don't know why I point to my head, in my own awareness of myself, in all my relationships, right? That same thing will show up in this one, but it's going to look different, right? Because my mind projects differences. My mind projects this person's different to that person, but it's the same lesson being presented again and again and again. And obviously, as the thing gets smaller, because it's the same lesson, it takes up more room in the center here. As I get closer to my awakening, it takes up more room, becomes more obvious, and becomes more painful if I leave it unaddressed. If I don't confront it in my own mind, it's going to eventually take up all of my breathing space in here and kill me. And I'll find myself back out here on the outer again in another incarnation doing it all again. But whilst I'm out here in my first or second incarnation, let's say, going through things in a relatively slow process, I've got plenty of room to avoid the tiny mad idea, right? And I'll become very good at adjusting to this tiny mad idea in this relationship by avoiding the obvious, right? By avoiding the fact that my mind is upset by something. I'm not upset. I'm okay. It doesn't really upset me. But when you get down here, fucking hell, this upsets me. I'm really pissed off about this person's situation or event. And you've got to look at it. What is this in my own mind? Because anything, when you refuse to, and it is a refusal, when you refuse to be happy, when you refuse to take on board the nature of healing in your relationships here and try to put the universal lesson, the universal curriculum out of mind, out of touch, if I can't see it, it's not there. It manifests in your body as resistance. You're resisting something. Something is calling you to look at it. Something is calling you to be present with it. It's always going to be the tiny mad idea, right? The tiny mad idea in our frame of time and space, let's say, or in our frame of reference, is going to be represented by the call to awaken from the dream of separation. Does that make sense? Right? But it's going to show up in your relationships as somebody triggering you. Someone said something, did something. I'm a victim all of a sudden. It's like, great, be a victim. Be the best victim you can be. Like, let's do this totally. Be a fucking victim. Right? Until finally you realize that being a victim really sucks. Right? Whilst you still think you can get something out of being a victim and blaming other people, your finger's not going to come back here. Right? I want to draw your attention to the fact, hey, you're a victim. You're going to be this victim if you don't bloody deal with it out here. Right? Make hay while the sun shines. So this whole thing here, I mean, in the Course in Miracles, one of the lessons it says, choose one brother as a symbol of all the rest. Right? That's the same thing. My job is to get to the middle. Any brother, any situation, any relationship can get me to the middle, because that relationship wouldn't exist if it wasn't representing a teaching, learning opportunity that has the full potential within it for me to accept salvation within. Does that make sense? It's like salvation is available to me here, here, here. Every time that relationship comes around again, it's available to me. But I need to be aware that out here, I'm looking at it, it's just the tip of the iceberg. When I get to it here, the tip of the iceberg, and there's my water line, it gets a little bit more intolerable. What is this? Why is this relationship so sucky? And you might look under the water a little bit and see some of the iceberg there, but you don't want to look at the whole thing. Right? It's like, oh, I don't want to look at that. I can't deal with it. Don't want to know, blah, 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 blah. Right? Eventually you get to the point where the tip of the iceberg, you've seen it so many times, you've come around so many times, the tip of the iceberg is so annoying, it's like, all right, I'm going to look at it. Right? But you don't have to wait until it gets totally annoying. If you're out here and you realize there's the tip of the iceberg, you can draw your circle, be still, and ask with the Holy Spirit, look at this with me to the total capacity that I'm willing, capable, able, whatever, to be still in this circle and deal with this, right? And heal it through the prayer of the heart. And that will entail that you are willing to release the defenses against truth in that relationship to this whole emotional vibratory frequency represented by this particular ray association that shows up as that person. And I hope that makes sense. Once you get to the middle here, right? Once you can do that whole thing, you know what it takes for all these others, because they're exactly the same. And when you collapse one, technically you have collapsed all of them, because they are all a mirror, all a reflection of the one relationship that you have with God. And you'll find that if you can stand in your circle or be in your circle for this whole thing, you'll find that that whole thing transfers to all of these other relationships. And even though these may still trigger you or trick you or fool you or tempt you into believing that they're different, you'll realize it's the same thing. And you'll be like Jesus, where he says, get behind me, Satan. I know what this is. It's and you'll go through this whole thing and purify your mind in regard to all of this ray association. And that'll be according to the divine orchestration of your own journey that's presented to you by the Holy Spirit. Right? There's a certain point where you've totally let go. You throw your oars in the river and you let the river take your little canoe to the ocean, and the ocean of love. Isn't that nice? But at any point, you can stop in any relationship and do this, in any situation and do this, in any event and do this. Right? We call that the dark night of the soul. You can continue on around in this slowly evolving thing till eventually in 10,000 years you get to the middle. Right? But why do that? Course in Miracles is here to help you learn how to collapse time by looking at your relationship as an idea of snipping out the whole energetic package of denial in one relationship and seeing that one relationship is not different from another relationship. It's the same relationship, right? You still may have the emotional release through all of these other relationships, because the trigger is still going to historically be there and you're going to recognize it. You're just not going to react to it the same way. You're going to bless rather than judge. You're going to love rather than condemn, because you've done it here and you see that there's no justification for not doing it here. Okay, it no longer makes any sense for you to hold a grievance or a judgment. It just doesn't. You want to see in everyone your dearest friend. I want to release you from the part you've been playing for me. I want to release you from the part you've been playing me, and you and you and you and all of this stuff, right? I want to release all that from my mind, because I'm realizing I'm the dreamer of the dream. I'm the one projecting it out on here for the role for you guys all to play, in order for me to either A, believe that I'm separate from God, tiny mad idea, or B, to heal that tiny mad idea in that relationship and have that be symbolic of the whole thing. And I hope that makes sense. And look, I hope that's if you watch all these whiteboard videos, you'll find that, and even my other videos, you'll find that my mind works a different way. To me, I'm drawing this, I'm doing this. I know exactly what I'm trying to say, whether or not I'm saying it perfectly or not. I don't really know what I'm saying and what you guys hear. I don't really know, like I say tomato, you hear tomato, but I really don't know. But if you watch a whole bunch of correlating videos that I've done, especially the whiteboard ones, I think, you'll start to form a picture of how things proceed as an idea of keeping that finger on your nose within your own association. And I guarantee you things will get easier. I have people write to me all the time saying, dude, this makes so much sense of the New Testament. This makes so much sense of all the parables. This makes so much sense of everything I've been going through. If it's helpful, great. If you don't understand this, if it's just a lot of gobbledygook, I have people that tell me, you should just read the Bible, dude. This is all crap what you're talking. I have people say things like that. It's like because they're religiously oriented and institutionalized with certain religious aspects of their experience, which is also this, in my mind, get behind me, Satan. But if it doesn't make sense to you, if you don't really get it, either watch it again, right? Just sit with a certain idea about it, ask for clarity from your higher guide, or move on to something else, right? Sometimes this will drop in down the track. You'll be like, oh, that's right, Dave was talking about this. I'll go back and watch that video again, right? I mean, I'm only here to be helpful. If it's not helpful, don't cuss at me. You can if you want. It'll bounce off, but don't cuss at me. Just move on to something else. If this is not for you, find what's for you, right? It's like everything's part of your journey, whether you can integrate it, include it, accept it, believe it, whatever or not, it doesn't really matter, right? You will because you did. How that looks is completely individual. If I'm not the right teacher for you and etc., then the right one will come along. Right? Have faith in that. God leaves no stone unturned, and there is no lack in God. My perspective on things, my teacher Ted would often talk about things and I'd be like, I can hear that, but I can't quite put my finger on what he's saying. I can hear I'd be attracted to it. I would hear that there was something being said, but it didn't quite boom. And sometimes I would go and see him after class, and be like, dude, I need to ask you about this thing because I can feel it, I can harmonize with it, I know, but it hasn't dropped in yet, And that's often the case, that it drops in when it needs to, when it's later on down the track. So, anyway, I love you. I am going to the airport now to pick up Chitra, and this will be my last video for a little while. I'm taking my daughter to New Zealand. So take the advantage of that gap to do your workbook lessons, read your Course in Miracles book, communicate with Tina. She loves having you guys communicate with her. And watch some of the older videos that I've done. The oldest of the videos on my channel, I mean, they're only 10 years ago, I think I started making videos or something. But the older ones, I'm a lot more raw. It's closer to my awakening. It's 20 years from my awakening. It's nearly 30 years now, but or 28 years, I think. I don't know what year we are. 25. So it's 1997. What's that? Yeah, 28 years. So, but those earlier ones, you'll see in my process where I'm at with stuff. Right? You'll see it more readily and more easily, especially if you've been doing the workbook a bit more. You'll be like, oh yeah, Dave's, not practicing what he preaches there or whatever. We're all works in progress. So you're going to have to forgive me for my mistakes as I forgive you. And we'll just all get along together and just give it the best college try, you know. But eventually all your efforts line up to the same direction, and you have a shift in consciousness, and everything seems to be good for a while until the next one comes along. Hopefully you won't need the next one comes along. You do it all in one go, boom, shanker. Because you've been trained to do it that way. Tina said something interesting to me today. I can't really... Oh, she said, oh, I was wondering about you because she saw me making comments or something on... Actually, I might do another video about this. This is cool. Sometimes you've got to break a window. And that leans towards how subtle things can get. That leans to... I'll do another video. So, Tina, if you're watching this, remind me to do another video. I used to see the same thing in my teacher, Ted. I used to see, like, what the hell is he doing? You know, what is he doing? But it seems to be saying one thing and teaching another. Like, and Rosie used to pull me up on that all the time, and it'd be like, no, put your finger back on your nose, because you can't judge anyone for anything in here with regards to what it seems to be going on, because everything's part of a divine orchestration. And as much as a cop-out as that sort of seems, it's true. There is only the will of God. So in the understanding of that, it's like, well, lesson number one, nothing I see means anything. If I think it means something, it's because I'm trying to judge someone or something else in relationship to what I think my attitude or understanding of the situation is. And I'm automatically making a relative association, which puts me back into time and space, back into duality, not in the here and the now, finger on my nose experience of myself. Right? And it's practice. Practice makes perfect. And I often have people say to me, how come you've still got karma, Dave? And it's like, well, because I do. Is there a problem with that? I had my awakening first, and now I'm like you guys. I'm just doing my thing. And I don't know if you would say I have an advantage. I don't have the luxury of belief to be denied or anything. I can't deny that there is no world. I'm sort of thrust into it, and no matter what, I can't dilly-dally out here. I always have to bring it straight into here. But sometimes I sort of throw a rock at a window to try and make this iceberg here more elaborate. And that throwing a rock at a window is like stirring the pot. Sometimes I like to stir the pot and be human for a second. Anyway, I'll make another video about that because that's cool. It's very much like making a declaration in reverse, being the devil's advocate for a second. But I'll do another video because that's probably going to be a good one on its own, but not for a little while. I'll be back in a few weeks. Love you guys. Peace.